Syria once again becomes a mess. Just 11 days after the insurgents launched an attack on Aleppo, this force advanced into the capital Damascus. The Syrian government collapsed. The prime minister was forced by the insurgents to leave a hotel to transfer power. And this is the scene in the presidential palace. Mr. Assad and his family have arrived in Moscow and Russia has granted asylum. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that the Syrian president had decided to resign and leave the country before the situation changed, leaving the command to transfer power peacefully. And so it's not chaotic enough. After the Assad administration collapsed in front of the Russian state-run news agency Sputnik, leading sources from Damascus said that the Israeli fighter planes attacked all military airports in the capital and the southern outskirts of the country. Close to the Allies, the US military launched a direct airstrike at 75 targets in the center of Syria. Why is all this happening in Syria after 8 years of conflict that seemed to have fallen asleep? How will it affect the world political map? And where will the future of Syria go? We will start in Aleppo, where the first outbreak of the crisis broke out. The second largest city in Syria has been the center of the Syrian civil war since the beginning. When Assad regained control of the city in December 2016, the basic conflict was ended. But many parts of the country are still out of the government's reach. But Assad has survived and strengthened his power in the long-term area from Aleppo to Latakia, along the coast to Hama and Homs in the center, then south to Damascus. This is the most populous area of Syria, which is also the heart of this country. Only Idlib is out of the border, and it is the center of the rebel army. Assad won thanks to the air support of Russia and the ground forces of Iran. So when the conflict ended, he became completely dependent on his allies. And then the crisis in Ukraine was a turning point. When Russia was busy in Ukraine, they could no longer take care of Syria personally. Iran was replaced and became the main supporter. But Assad saw the opportunity to regain control and get out of the influence of Iran. He clapped with UAE and Saudi Arabia. For example, as in August 2023, Syria was welcomed back into the Arab League. This is an important milestone, but not enough to get out of Iran's control. Then another turning point came. On October 7, 2023, Hamas attacked Iran, was angry. According to the UAE, the attack was aimed at destroying Iran's equipment, with Lebanon as the center. Assad knew that sooner or later the fire would burn to Syria. He contacted Turkey to normalize relations. Turkey and the ground forces were occupying Syrian territories in the north, and were the main sponsors for the HTS army in Idlib. This is the blood of Turkey. In recent years, social tensions have risen between the Turkish, who have a nationalist ideology, and the Syrian. Political discussions in Turkey are currently revolving around Syrian refugees. So Ankara needs to find a solution. However, Assad did the opposite. He did not let his compatriots return and asked Turkey to withdraw from the country. Take it as a prerequisite to normalize relations. Then he did everything to get worse by conquering Idlib, creating another refugee wave moving towards Turkey. Assad hopes this can create pressure on Ankara. So the Turkish president found Putin, asked him to intervene. But at the moment, the Russian president is still busy with Ukraine. Meanwhile, Syria has been in touch with Iran and Hezbollah for many months, forcing them to transfer resources elsewhere. The power struggle in Syria is on the rise. The rate of the rising forces occupying Aleppo reflects Iran's weakness and influence. So after the end of the diplomatic struggle, Turkey changed tactics, disengaged the dangerous forces. This brings us to the situation today. With the position located in the crossroads of the region, any event in Syria will have a negative effect on the entire nearby region. For Turkey, it means there are more refugees. For Syria, it means that the warlords will be close to their houses. For Russia, it is a story of a well-known building alliance. Let's talk more clearly about the impact of each external force. Starting with Iran. For more than a decade, Iran has been a mainstay in the conflict in Syria. Tehran is the reason why Assad holds the throne. But more importantly, Iran wants to create a bridge on the ground to connect directly with their hostile forces in Lebanon. Hezbollah. This route, of course, runs through Iraq and Syria, allowing the transfer of supplies, hotels and personnel. Without it, Iran cannot nurture hostile forces and deploy its power outside its borders. It also creates a respect for Sunni religious forces against Iran in the Russian-Lithuanian religion, such as UAE, Arab Saud, Qatar and Turkey. It also increases Iran's influence on the Syrian community in the region. In addition, Iran also uses Syria as a pretext in the confrontation with Israel. They have troops and hotels in Syria to stop Israel. In other words, they cannot become a regional power if there is no bridge going through Syria. But now, Iran's ambition is under serious threat. That leads us to the case of Israel. According to Aviv, there is no need for an Assad to collapse because, from the point of view of Israel, Iran is a threat, but Sunni military training is not a bad thing. The only potential ally of Israel is SDF, Syria's northeast control force, and the US's back against the military. Israel can create a corridor through the eastern border of Syria, connecting to the territory of SDF. Once Trump takes power, the possibility is even more likely to become a reality. Israel may cut off the bridge over the Iranian army through Syria. And that's it. However, this area has a small population, and the rear centers are very far apart, so it is very difficult to maintain the situation, especially if there is no US aid. And Israel is also at risk of losing relations with Turkey, because SDF is the enemy of this country. It's a branch of PKK. But what is PKK? You can find out for yourself. With a 911 km long border, Turkey is probably the most affected side. However, it should be noted that Ankara does not directly control the rising group that overthrew Assad or HTS. This group is considered illegal by the international community, whether it is the US, EU, Russia, Iran or Turkey itself. Ankara has a certain impact on HTS because the territories are different. But HTS has its own path and operates with a lot of autonomy. But Turkey still has to stand up to HTS, because any action against this group will create a wave of refugees advancing into Turkey. However, now that HTS has overthrown Assad, they can go their own way, completely independent from Turkey. At this point, HTS's interests conflict with Turkey. In addition to the departure of Turkey, HTS has also come to Russia. Although Russia is not lost, Russia's goals in Syria are completely different from the goals of other countries. Russia's navy has a base on the Syrian coast, but the small scale and relationship between Moscow and Assad is always good. Russia's attraction to Syria is that it wants to strengthen its influence in the south. By supporting Assad, Putin has recreated his position in the Middle East and internationally building Russia's prestige as a permanent ally. Russia's military intervention in Syria in 2015 was truly a breakthrough. Russia's prestige has been rampant in the south, causing Arab countries to initially oppose Russia, turning their backs. So for Russia, Syria is not important because of the navy base or the military influence, but because of the image of Russia as a global power. When Assad is overthrown, Russia's prestige will be affected, and Western partners can review Russia's security relationship. However, it will not greatly affect Russia's efforts in Ukraine. So what will happen next in Syria? There are three scenarios as follows. In the first scenario, a Syrian Democratic Republic can be established, such as an alliance of opposition parties with many parties and differences in ideology after the government of President Bashar al-Assad was overthrown. Although such a choice is difficult to realize, Turkey, Russia, the US and European countries will support it because it will allow the maintenance of the entire territory of Syria. The second scenario is a country with a Syrian religious republic, including representatives of the HTS, to create a new force of life. In this case, Syria will be represented by the Sunni Qaeda religious movement. This movement has no grudge against Israel or the US. A state against the Shiite people by Isarek al-Swat can be established in Syria, with the intention of fighting Iran, with the prevention of the Hezbollah movement in Lebanon and the cut of the bridge over the land as we have analyzed. Another scenario will be to establish a Syrian federal republic led by the US. Syria will be divided into small countries. And the fifth scenario, Syria will be divided and disintegrated if the opposition and supporting countries do not reach an agreement when such a scenario is implemented. The civil war in Syria will climb again, finally leading to complete disintegration. Which scenario will happen?